Hi guys, Mr. Who's the Boss here. This is my full review of the Cubot X9. So until 2 or 3 years ago, you would have almost definitely never heard of Cubot. With improving smartphones, incredibly good tablets, they are now starting to make a name for themselves, and their brand is one to be reckoned with. So now let's take a look at the X9, starting with the build. So the X9 looks a lot like the iPhone 6, and for all the right reasons. It actually has a full aluminium unibody design, very similar to the iPhone 6, and to be honest, I have to say I can barely fault the build. It looks really nice, it's very pleasing to the eye, the buttons are all exactly as they should be in all the right places, and they actually feel really high quality. On the front we have a 5 megapixel front camera with a CMOS sensor, as well as your microphone. And then on the back we have an 8 megapixel stacked Sony XMOS sensor, which gives a virtual 13 megapixels. So the device is just 6.9mm thin, making it Cubot's thinnest smartphone ever, and really something to behold. Its weight, 135 grams, is somewhere in the middle of the line. To be fair, I quite like it. It feels like a quality piece of kit in your hand, but at the same time it's light enough to be quite usable. The packaging was very nice to look at, but the included accessories slightly on the bare side. Having said that, from the precision cut aluminium unibody to the Gorilla Glass front, you have to colour me impressed. So now let's talk about the features of the device. So to begin with, the first thing you're going to notice when you turn on the Cubot X9 is its beautiful display. So this is a 720p panel, which for the price is just about right. I mean, most phones at this price point either offer a 720p or a QHD resolution, which is much lower. And even though 720p is hardly next gen, I really think that they've absolutely nailed the colours on this device. I think even Samsung could learn a thing or two from them. So as you can see, we have a slightly alternate settings menu. It makes zero sense to me. I can't see why they've done it. It's not really adding anything, but then again it doesn't really take anything away. So as you can see, we're running Android 4.4 KitKat here, which is good but not great. I mean, Lollipop doesn't really add anything major, but then again this is something that is missing. Now Cubot also talks a lot about HotNot, its way of rapidly transferring data at up to 54 megabytes per second. You have double tap to sleep, double tap to wake, and even cooler air gesture. Furthermore, the screen is ultra sensitive, meaning even when I actually put on my Arctic quality gloves, you can actually still use it. That's impressive. So when I saw the specifications, I noticed it had a 2200 mAh battery, which is not exactly great, and it got me a little bit worried. Having said that though, after using the device, all my doubts have gone. It's not outstanding, but the battery life is probably just above average and will easily get you through a day. So now we'll take a listen to these stereo speakers, which I have to say are not great. The camera, on the other hand, is another story altogether. So this is still using Google's stock camera app, which is not exactly my favourite. It does offer some fairly nice features, but the interface is a little bit plain for my liking. I think it just looks a little bit like an older version of Android and not quite up to date. The photos this thing comes out with are astonishing in detail. As you can see, on the 13 megapixel mode, you can just keep zooming. Now the picture quality here is actually very reminiscent of last year's LG G3. Really nice detail and impressive colours. Furthermore, in dark situations, the flash, even though single, does an incredible job of lighting things up, and again, detail is just crisp, contrast is high, and colours are still really popping. The autofocus and shutter speed are both, again, better than average. And finally, when you actually go into a scene with low lighting and you're not using flash, I was still amazed by the detail that this thing captures. The camera is really one of the highlights of this phone. Although clearly not as good as the rear one, the front camera also is very respectable. So now let's take a look at performance, which is almost definitely going to be the most important factor for you when you decide to buy a phone. So the interface is very nippy, just moving between screens, scrolling through the launcher, opening up applications, all happens almost instantaneously. Every now and again there'll be a little bit of a pause when you click on an application, but then again there doesn't seem to be any stutter at all, which is what really gets me about phones. And Antutu gives the phone a respectable 28,500. So this places it between the HTC One from 2 years ago and the LG G3 from last year. Those are both, again, flagship devices, so this is, although not outstanding, is impressive. So bear in mind here that we're actually using a full octa-core CPU here, so For games and apps that don't take advantage of all 8 cores, you do tend to get weaker performance. Speaking of games, I was pleasantly surprised to note that just about every single game is compatible and runs extremely well. So as you would expect, simple 3D games like this are no problem at all, the device will chew through them. Games like Jelly Jump with a sort of 2.5D, I could not find one that actually pushes the device, but then again almost all the basic Android phones can handle this, so that's not really an issue. Moving over to 3D games, you can occasionally see some stutter. Now this game is actually running at a smooth frame rate, but it doesn't look it for 2 reasons. First of all, it's badly optimized, and second of all, the frame rate is for some reason capped at about 20 to 25, I can't quite tell. So when you actually play a game like Blitz Brigade, which is a really well optimized Android title, it'll be running at a smooth, flawless 60 frames per second, which is, quite frankly, excellent. So I'd now like to bring this review to a close, giving you my verdict and final thoughts on the device. So when I took the Cubot X9 out of the box, I was very impressed initially by how it looked and how it felt in the hand. It's ergonomic, it's got just the right weight, and it's very slim. Feature-wise, it ticks just about every single box except perhaps 4G. It has dual SIM, which is something that not a lot of phones actually offer. It has SD card support, a really nice rear camera. Now the speakers I wasn't a big fan of. Although they actually look very nice, they're positioned very well, they're just not loud enough and they sound quite muffled. The screen though is also a real highlight here. I really enjoyed looking at the display. It makes videos, games, photos and everything come to life. And when it comes to performance, under the hood, this thing packing an octa-core processor and 2GB of RAM is seriously powerful. It chews through almost everything you throw at it and barely struggles. Every now and again you'll feel like this is maybe not a flagship device, but most of the time you'll be flying. Thanks for watching guys, I hope you liked this video and don't forget to subscribe for more.